Hello my lovelies and welcome to today's video. I have been seeing recently on Instagram, I think it's as we're coming into the end of the year and setting intentions for 2025, but I've been seeing a lot of 10 books on my TBR, 10 books like my fantasy TBR, 10 books I want to read in this period of time, this, that and the other. Particularly I've seen Charlotte's Book Nook both on Instagram and TikTok do this, and a lot of posts are like photos, so I want to join in with that as well, but I thought let me come on here and do a YouTube video too with some like one-line synopsis about some of these books in these categories. So I kind of had a look at my bookshelves and thought, what kind of categories do I want to highlight? And I also thought I don't want to go and do 10 because I easily get overwhelmed, and I'm a bit of a mood reader, so although I love a to-do list and a tick list and making lists, I also like the fluidity of not being super tied down and overwhelmed that I have to get everything ticked off of like a big list. So I've got 5 books for each thing that I want to talk about. I also thought let me split this into 2 parts because there might be more of an interesting aspect in one video over the other for you guys, and also it just saves me talking on and on and on and on forever and ever. Amen. You know, so in this first video I split it up into 5 backlist book subscription books that I want to get to, 5 library books I want to get to specifically in 2025 if I haven't already read them by the end of it. If you follow me on TikTok, you know that I have been getting quite a bit of overexcitement because I've recently started working in a library. I say recently, nearly 6 months now, but I have been taking out a lot of books, more than I can read, which is saving me money, but at the same time it's still more than I can read, and I still have a plethora of books that I haven't actually read that I own, you know. So I thought let me do another little list and get through those. So yeah, the goal is obviously to finish them before the year, get a good chunk of the way through them, but if not, these particular ones are what I want to get to in the very beginning of 2025. And then to finish off part 1, I have 5 horror books that I want to get to as well, and this is kind of like indefinitely. There's not really a timeline on the majority of the books I'm talking about. It's just 5 of my TBR fit into these categories that I want to highlight and that have my interest at the moment. So yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Starting with the 5 books on my backlist books of book subscriptions specifically. I think these are a mixture of Illumicrate and Fairy Loot, both the YA and the adult subscription if I remember correctly, that are kind of calling to me. They look very beautiful on my bookshelves, but I haven't really read them, so let's get to it. The first one I have here is Veronica Roth's Poster Girl. I haven't read anything by Veronica Roth before. I never really was into the Divergent sort of dystopian era, and this is dystopian, but it gravitates towards my interests a little bit more, I would say. So in Poster Girl, a former symbol of a dystopian regime seeks redemption in a surveillance-filled society as she is embarking on a dangerous quest to find a missing child. This is how the sprayed edges look like on this one. We have the beloved Emily's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Emily Fawcett, in which we follow a scholar called Emily who embarks on a research trip into a remote village, only to find herself entangled in the magical world in which she studies. This is another, of course, gorgeous edition, and it's one that has been staring at me for the longest time. An author that I've read very little of before, but it is one that I have been having in the back of my mind every now and then. I'm like, I really need to try more, I really need to try more. But this is Holly Black's Book of Night, and in this story we are following a con artist as our main character. So we've already got that morally grey antagonist protagonist kind of vibe, that duality there, and this character is drawn back into the dark underbelly of shadow magic. Manipulation of shadows can unlock power, but at a deadly cost. This sounds like something I'd really love, and I just really need to get to it, so there we are. I have not read anything by at all. Again, it was that kind of dystopian-esque time where I wasn't really that interested in that particular genre. But this is Tahira Mafi's This Woven Kingdom. I don't know if this series is completed now or if it has at least a couple of books and it's ongoing, but oh my gosh, I am definitely interested in trying this one out, and maybe one day I'll go back to the Chatty series, but it still doesn't really have that much of an interest in me. But I feel like it's such an original staple in like the booktube community. I do sometimes feel like I'm missing out. But anywho, This Woven Kingdom follows our main character, who is a servant girl who has hidden powers. And it seems like we've got dual perspective because we've also got a character of a prince who is bound by duty. And the two of them are caught up in a web of ancient prophecies, rise and rebellions that threaten their world. And lastly, for the backlist subscription book box books, that's so many words to describe one thing, there is A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, again an author that I've read nothing by, and I think that's probably why I've kind of shied away for a lot of these, because I've not read any of their books before, and I guess I don't have that instant attachment maybe, but also there's just so many books in the world to get to, isn't there? But anyway, this is gorgeous, and we are following a bard in this story, which is a perspective I don't feel like I've ever read from before, which is interesting to me. He is going back to his mystical island home, where his music alone holds the key to discovering the mysterious disappearances of young girls. So those are the subscription books that are on my radar at the minute. Let's get on to the next category, which is 5 library books I specifically want to read in 2025, but if I can get to them before then, that'll be fantastic. So we have the first to a trilogy. This is Begone the Raggedy Witches by Celine Kiernan. This is following Mup, who is our young main character who embarks on a magical adventure to find her mother, and whose goal is to set out to rescue her mother from a dangerous realm ruled by a tyrannical queen and her witches. Up an unofficial biography of Billie Eilish. This one is written by Adrian Besley. It says from e-girl to icon, which is such a strange little tag at the end here. Anyway, this is basically the life of Billie Eilish, written not by her at all, from somebody else's perspective, just kind of talking about her rise of popularity from her breakthrough as a teenage artist to her impact on music today. Going on that, I have this gorgeous edition borrowed from the library of Indian myths and legends. This is Tales of Heroes, Gods and Monsters, generally edited by J.K. Jackson, which paints a rich tapestry of India's mythology, bringing it all to life through captivating stories of gods, heroes and epic adventures. This is kind of where my love for the library began, actually, because I remember one of my early library memories was at the school library, where I didn't go swimming and I would sit in the library and borrow books about, or read books at the time because it was the school's library, about mythologies and creation stories. And I remember when I got my library card, I'd go and I'd look through all like the world history and religion section, particularly Indian mythologies and Egyptian mythologies, and I just remember absolutely eating that up, and that's kind of where my love for myths and legends was born, really. So yeah, this is kind of like a homage to that, so I would like to read this relatively soon. I have Disturbance by Jenna Clark, in which a young woman kind of comes to terms and faces the trauma of her past as she begins to unravel the mysteries of a series of uncomfortable and unsettling events. And finally, for the library book category, I have Black Teacher by Beryl Gilroy, and this is a non-fiction about the author reflecting on her life experiences as a black teacher, highlighting the challenges and the triumphs in the education system of her working life while navigating systematic racism and personal identity. So those are the library books I'm hoping to read relatively soon, potentially in the new year. Okay, and lastly for this part 1, I have the horror book category. So this is 5 horror books on my TBR that are particularly of interest to me, that I keep meaning to get to, but again, So many books, so little time. So the top one on this list, I'm just finding a place to put these down because I'm like surrounded by books, which is amazing but also incredibly overwhelming. The first one I see quite a lot of buzz about, and it seems to be making the rounds again. This is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica, and I've seen so many people saying, I open the book, I have nightmares about the book, I can't stop thinking about the book. And I want that, but also I'm terrified of having that happen because I have such a vivid imagination and I'm worried I won't be able to switch this off. But it sounds amazing, exploring a dystopian world but within a horror setting where humans are bred and consumed like livestock. And of course it raises like chilling and uncomfortable questions about morality and humanity, and it just sounds like it's going to really pack a punch. We've got, you know, a modern classic in the making. My copy is a little bit dirty, I don't know what's on it and I kind of don't want to know, but this is Stephen King's It is a behemoth of a book, but I am planning on reading this with the audiobook as well to make it a little bit less of a daunting experience, hence why, you know, I've kind of put it off. But honestly, the blended reading with an audiobook and a book, especially if it's a massive one, I have been enjoying that experience. It's just getting the time to sit down because I know that I'm only going to want to do that when I'm at home and I have like a solid moment to myself, because I'm not going to be lugging such a heavy book around. I'm not going to be most of the time just reading or just audiobooking. It's most like the experience for me that makes it is doing both at the same time for the majority, if not all of the books. So it really is kind of like a home time reading experience for me, and another reason why it's being put off, because I need to be in that optimal state of mind. I know I'm overthinking this, it's just how my brain works, okay? I don't know if anybody else is like that, but yeah, it's a lot of process and thinking and preparation for me mentally to get on board with reading this. But of course, if you don't know the premise of Stephen King's It follows a group of children who face off against a terrifying shape-shifting entity that has been terrorising their small town for decades and decades. When they think they've defeated it in their childhood, it resurfaces again to haunt them in their adulthood, and they have to band together to try and end this once and for all. Sticking with the Stephen King theme, this is a collaborated piece with Richard Chismar. This is Gwendy's Final Task. I have got this particular edition as the library copy. I have read every book so far in this series. I don't know why I said it like that. It's a trilogy, so I've read the prior two from the library, so I just thought let me just continue and finish it off from the library as well. But I wanted to put it in this category because it's, you know, particularly horror, and I had it in my mind for horror books that I keep thinking of that I really need to get to. So yeah, Gwendy's Final Task, and without spoiling the other two books in this series, the simple premise is we are following Gwendy Peterson as she embarks on a dangerous mission to protect a mysterious button box, and this button box holds the power to alter reality as we know it. So it's quite a hefty responsibility, and she's first given this box as I think she's like 12, and if I remember correctly, she gets older throughout the books. Like, I can't remember if she gets to adulthood or what. I might need to do a recap to remember, but to be given that responsibility as a child is probably terrifying. But I've really enjoyed them so far, and I would love to just finish off this series and wrap that up. This one is always in the back of my head. I really need to read this. This is Eric LaRocca's Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, which unravels a disturbing online relationship between two women, revealing dark desires and unsettling consequences. Got that early 2000s chat room vibe, and it just sounds like it's going to be incredibly eerie and unsettling, and I'm really here for this. And lastly for today's video, A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers follows a food critic with a taste for murder. She recounts her violent exploits within this story, and it blends the themes of dark humour with the chilling exploration of obsession and desire. So yes, this sounds great, and I remember it getting quite a bit of praise when it first came out as well. Again, those are the 5 books, my little stack of horror books that I need to get to eventually that are on my list. I like lists. that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for a part 2. I'm probably going to be doing a picture post at some point over on TikTok, and I'll probably share it to Instagram as well. So that's the plan. Thank you so much for watching. I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.